I'm at the beautiful and simple Welsh Tract Church in Newark, Delaware today. As usual, I'm in a graveyard enjoying all the silhouettes of the markers that I love so much. But the reason why I'm making this video is because this is a nice small cemetery, but it also gives an example of what happens over time with the markers. As for anybody who visits a cemetery, I mean, you know, it's these beautiful markers of different shapes, different styles, different heights, different time periods that are the attraction. I can see my video does not like that. But what happens is, as you walk through, you find things like this. You find markers that have either fallen or sometimes, unfortunately, been pushed over. I thought when I first saw this one that it had damaged the one next to it, but no. It looks like nature is just taking its toll on this one too. And eventually, if it doesn't get fixed, that one's gonna go as well. This one, they're really lucky because somebody picked it up off the ground and put it on top of the pedestal, so it won't sink into the ground. But over here, I mean, you can see they start to lean, they start to sink into the ground. Look at this one. There are other examples that I'm going to show of the subsidence and how it affects the tombstones. But look at this one. Half of it is on its original mound, or I don't know, maybe it's not even original. Maybe that's, I don't know why that's such a high piece of land there. But it looks like an animal has dug a hole, made a little den of some sort, and there's probably a warren under there that has made the weight of the stone sink down into the ground. This one, eventually, if it's not picked up, if there's not something done with that, it will disappear, just like some of the others do. Like, here's an example of one. They just sink down into the ground. Look at that. You know that, okay, this was the foot, but you can see even the headstone itself is being eaten up by the ground. Here's a better example, actually. I don't like this little piece of garbage in front of it. It's a candle, it looks like. But, I mean, you can see that was meant to be a little bit higher. And that happens all the time. You see a lot of those. This is another one like the fallen down one, which I really want to focus on because look at the beauty of this stone. Look at the decorations of that stone. It's gorgeous, and clearly somebody thought a lot about how to keep it intact in perpetuity. But unfortunately, gravity has a say as well. And you can see that this slab right here just kind of slipped forward. And then time and weather took away whatever material this is that was supposed to kind of glue it together, so to speak. And then that little slot was not deep enough, I guess, excuse me, to go into this piece that was meant to hold it up. And again, luckily, it hit this gravestone, but it damaged it only by scraping a little bit of something off. And this piece that would have topped the one that fell, this piece scraped it. This piece got knocked off, but did very little damage to the one it fell against. Here's another example of, clearly, this is a beautiful set of tombstones and markers. A lot of money was spent on this, between the fence, the foundations, the obelisks, these flat tabletop-like tombs. I'm not sure what they're called. I should probably find that out. But again, look at that. Can you see? Yeah, it's leaning. The one over here is leaning a lot because the pedestal here is rising up. Over here we've got a broken area, so probably that tabletop is going to start sinking down towards the right. Here you've got a difference in height between the two slabs, and you know, we're going to end up with this one here falling. It's going to hit its mate, and that one's going to fall onto the tabletop. And here is the last type that I'll talk about today. Here's another tabletop. These are often made of brick and stone, the base part I mean, or in this case, pedestals. There's another different type of pedestal. That one seems to be, the pedestal itself seems to be doing okay, but the base of it is crumbling, so that one's also going to go at some point. But you know, you can just see these pedestals over time, they just lose their integrity as well, and you're going to lose what is a really old and historic tomb or grave. So why am I talking about this? Well, mainly because when we walk through cemeteries, you know, we just tend to think of the serenity, the beauty, the shape of the stones, the people who are buried there. We're there to mark maybe history. We're there to just mark our families maybe. Or if you don't have somebody there like me, you just go there because it's a solemn place, and there's history and there are stories involved, and I want to just kind of feel that. But as you walk through, you also see that so much damage is done to the gravestones over time. And people who manage cemeteries, that is one of the most difficult problems that they have to solve, because maintenance, you know, keeping the lawn done, that's a big expense. Maintaining things like this, like, you know, this wall over here, you can just, I don't know if you can see, but this wall, you know, is crumbling as well, and that's another huge expense. But the reason why we're here is it's a cemetery, and the actual graves themselves have damage. But there are always more, right? There are hundreds of them in this cemetery. There are thousands of them in other cemeteries, but they require work and effort to maintain them. Or, you know, if they're already damaged, do you know how much work it is to fix these things? It requires some kind of device to lift them because they're so heavy. It requires volunteers and manpower and money. And cemeteries, you know, so many of them are abandoned or just, you know, hurting because they don't have the money to maintain a lot of the graves and markers. And I have a little bit of a mixed feeling about that, because part of me, I like, in a way, okay, I don't want to say I like it, but I understand, I can relate to the loss of the markers. It's part of life, it's part of time, it's part of being on this earth. But it's also, how do I say it? It's also a way of losing the person who's there. You know, if I look at this one right here, you know, I can read the name, I can read the dates, I I don't know that person, but by reading about them, even just their name and their dates and the fact that they were alive, there's something there. It gives them dignity and honor. By even if I can't read the names, it's still marking their presence on this earth and the fact that they were here and they did something and they had children, or they helped their community in some way. And when those are gone, when they sink down into the earth, or when they are cracked and lost forever, then in a way, so does their existence. And so that's why I feel taking care of the gravestones and at least making it so that they exist for as long as possible is a really valid and honorable thing to do. So if you can help in any way, volunteer at your local cemetery. Give money, even if you're not part of the cemetery. Go for a walk in the cemetery and look at some of the things that are there, the graves themselves and some of the damage, and talk to your local cemetery manager. So there's a lot. Whatever your skill, you can help, you can be involved, and you can honor the people who are in the cemetery. Thanks so much for listening.